wondered where you came from and if you had long lost relatives on the other side of the globe? Well, your DNA has a lot to say. And with wildly popular services like 23andMe and Ancestry.com, those answers are a lot more easy to find. Today, we're talking all things genealogy and how to start building your own legacy now. Welcome to Havilah and Friends. I'm your host, Havilah Malone, and every week I bring you inside my amazing world of mindfulness teachers, inspirational speakers, business experts, celebrities, and so much more to have the conversations that matter to you. And today's guest is a legacy writer, a motivational speaker, publisher, and CEO of Sula 2. Please welcome my good friend, Ersula Odom. Hello, Ersula.
Hello, Havilah. Thank you so much for sharing me with your audience.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. Like, I am so excited about our conversation today because I think it's become so popular now for people to, find out like what is all in their DNA, like what heritage they have, being able to find like long lost relatives. And I think it's fascinating. And I too went on that journey recently of sending in my DNA sample to 23andMe and found some really interesting information about myself. And I know that you have also gone down this journey, but you help people to be able to really tell the story of their family, tell the story and build their own legacies. And so I know that you also got your results back, and I believe you use Ancestry.com, right?
I use Ancestry and 23andMe.
Okay, so you went all the way out.
Well, I have been my family historian now from 1989. So my cousin and I were all into finding out who we were, what part of Africa we're from, and just how we connect. So it was just a natural thing to do.
And what was anything in your results when you found out, like, what parts of Africa you were from, what parts of your DNA were, different areas? Like, was there anything that was shocking? And do you mind sharing what your results were?
Well, I lost my mom, and I did not have her DNA done. And being a genealogist, I said, that makes no sense. I should have done that. So I had my father tested, and then I had myself tested, and that's where the surprise came in. I simply wanted to go and find what part of Africa. And I did that, but quite frankly, I have not focused on that at all since the results came back, because I discovered that I have another name, and it wasn't the one I grew up with. It's not the one that's on my birth certificate. Even though that's pretty interesting as well. My cousin, that's my counterpart with the family reunion, she's the person that whips everybody into shape in terms of bringing the reunion together, and I'm the one that comes up with the family stories. Well, she called me, she asked me, "Is that you?" I said, "Yes, that's me." So we proved that the system worked. So when I got my results back, I couldn't deny it. It was like, oh my God, this works. And there were a couple of other events that took place that just set it up. I couldn't have orchestrated it any better if I had written the story myself.
Wow. And that's so interesting that, because when we think about family, that also kind of ties into our identity. And we have our family units, our patriarchy, our matriarchy, siblings, cousins, and those who are around us. And we're like, this is who I am based off of the information that we've grown up with or that we've known. And one of the things that has been really interesting for me on this journey myself was the disclaimers that are given, like the warnings that are given, before walking down this journey, because once you know this type of information, you can't unknow it. And so they try to be very cautious about, if you want to know, what's in your DNA, if you have family members that are out there that you're not, aware of, just know that once you start to take those steps, that it may shift some paradigms for you. And so
I had someone ask me to do that for them, and that's not, I don't do it as a profession, but because they heard my story, they wanted to find their family. And this particular person said, I wish I knew who my family was, because he was left for adoption when he was born. And he said, I'm all alone in the world. Those were his words to me. And I helped him get his results back. And the first person that popped up was a first cousin. Freaked me out. That never happens. And he was so happy. I mean, that just made my day. And as for me, I grew up as an only child, and I wanted brothers and sisters so much. I would take dandelions and blow on them and throw them in the air, and all those little wings were supposed to go find me brothers and sisters. Well, it worked.
Oh my God. Say, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. So what happened?
Well, I discovered, and I won't go into the details about that I have brothers and sisters, and they're one unit. I'm the one that is not with them. So I was concerned that they wouldn't accept me, but they are so loving. It's an only child's dream. I love my brothers and sisters, and they're so kind to me. Are we perfect? No. I know that statistically, at some point in time, we're probably going to fall out, have some issue, but I don't care. They're mine. I own them. I claim them.
And that's such a beautiful thing, to go from a place of feeling like you're all alone in the world, and being in a unit where you are only child and feeling like, what, I wish I had brothers and sisters, and only to find out as you got older and went on this journey in search that I've got a lot of brothers and sisters out there. And matter of fact, I'll share, because I did my DNA testing through 23andMe, and there were some things that came back that were even surprising to me in my results. So I am 86% sub-Saharan African, with 34% of that being Nigerian, 16% of that being Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leonean. And then there's other smaller percentages of different areas in Africa. I am 11.6% European. And 4.6 of that percent is a British and Irish. And I was like, okay, Malone is my last name. I would figure there was probably some of that in there somewhere. And also I have 1.8% East Asian and Native American. And so I was surprised by the results that came back. I really thought that it was going to come back that I was from like Cairo, Egypt. That wasn't in my results. But I think everybody's journey and that discovery period is so interesting, and it also did reveal that I had 1,114 relatives that were identified in the system, and a lot of them are actually in like the California area. So I haven't yet had the courage to reach out to anyone yet.
Well, they'll find you if the right person pops up. Yeah, I discovered, if I remember correctly, it's either Tanzania or Madagascar, somewhere off of the across from the island over there. But again, I did not focus on that. The only thing I remember now is that I'm 93% sub-Saharan African, and I thought I was less than that. I was quite proud that, hey, that's pretty good. But that did surprise me. It did.
I love it. I know. I was like, okay, I'm African. I'm from Wakanda.
Yeah.
Exactly. But one of the things that you do, which I find so fascinating, and I want you to be able to share with our listeners, you help people through your company, Sula2, to build legacy videos and legacy walls. Because as we start to learn about our background, and it's a very interesting and rich history that's there. And we always think about how we want to leave something behind for future generations. And there are literally tools to be able to do that and tell the story of the greatness that your ancestors have lived as well as you have lived. So I want you to talk a little bit about building that legacy.
Yeah, it starts with something simple as one photograph can be a tool for telling a story. It doesn't have to be a whole ton of photographs. It doesn't have to be a book. But if you have a favorite photograph, that can help you begin to tell your story. And so with that thought, I use that to build legacy walls as well. There are schools, there are buildings, there are companies named after people, and we have no idea who those people are. They have this wonderful ceremony when the naming happened, and then you forget them. And even some of the students that go there, most of the students that go to certain schools don't have a clue who these people are. So in the first one that I did, it happened to be Booker T. Washington. So I put the legacy and photographs of Booker T. Washington, talked about who this person was, gave you some visual clue to what he did and the people that were around him, even to talk about who motivated him, who he motivated, and who challenged him. And then in the middle, I had some photographs from the school itself and its personal history of that particular school. And on the right, I happened to come across, well, the principal came across a yearbook from 1931. And in that yearbook were about 5 or 6 people who today have schools and all kinds of other things named after them, parks. They were well-known people from one year in one yearbook, including someone that worked with Thurgood Marshall to get equal pay for Black teachers in this county.
That was a good class.
So I highlighted,
great class.
yes. So I highlighted them as an example of what came from that school. And the message, subliminal as it may be, is that if all of that came from one year, what else happened from 1931 to this? A lot of good people have come through there. And then at the bottom, I told the story from a little person's point of view in cartoon form. And then on the right, I highlighted 4 people who are still alive and used their pictures when they were little. So their adult picture and their childhood picture, so that these children can see, yes, you're small today, but you will grow up to be somebody just like they did. And 2 things happened that just warmed my heart. When the wall was being installed, 2 little girls came into the wall and slid up to it like they were going into home base, because at the bottom right was somebody they knew, loved, and had hugged within the last 30 days. So that just was a warm moment for me. And then after the unveiling was over, someone took a picture and sent it to me of a teacher with her 1st grade class sitting at the bottom of the wall, and she was pointing to the story on the wall. That's what I wanted, to educate as you decorate, and that's what they were doing. And it just thrills my heart. And then finally, the one that's going up at the end of this month, we're doing something a little bit different. We're actually having the local theater group, I won't use the name because I haven't been given authorization to do that, but they are going to take a play that I wrote or skit that I wrote, adapt it for the stage, and use the elementary students to portray the young people that are on this wall, that are still in their 30s and 40s, that are being honored as examples of people who came through that school.
That's amazing. And that's really bringing home that point about, give me my flowers while I'm living. Because there are people who are doing extraordinary things, accomplishing great things today, now, who are still alive. And a lot of times people are not honored until after they have passed and after they have, died. But
Right.
to be able to have it's a wall that gets built that tells this story and is able to really inspire generations to come and the people right now. So I love it. We're going to actually post some photos of the Legacy Wall projects, below the video, because to be able to see this, it's absolutely breathtaking. And schools and organizations that are interested in getting that will be able to reach out to you if they want a Legacy Wall, built within their facility. But, we talk about storytelling and how important that is to the fabric of our experience of life. And there's many ways to be able to tell stories. So one, through these legacy walls and legacy videos, but you also, through Sula too, are a publisher. So you actually help people to tell their stories through books as well. So let's just talk a little bit about that.
The first one I did happened to be of the African American woman who was the first chairman of the school board here in Hillsborough County. And I walked into her house to write a news article about her. And I looked around and she had such wonderful representation of history on her wall. I said, you know, you need to write a book. And she said, honey, I don't know how to do that. You have to help me. And therein began a journey that now we love each other. And because we were able to tell the story and build a friendship while I was doing that. And now I do it for other people. What I like to do and what I say is, a lot of people talk about writing their book, but when they get to me, we get it done because I want this story out there. And and I also say, have your story written by someone who cares, because once I know what your story is, I look for the nugget that is different, overlooked, and that should be shared. And I'm just as interested in your story, if not more so, than you are. You know, I had one person, I had to say, whose book is this? Mine or yours? Come on, let's get this thing done.
And I think too, a lot of people start down the road like they have the inspiration to write a book or to share their story, and then because the process is unfamiliar and it's new for them, you know, they get overwhelmed or just procrastinate on taking those steps forward, because you're not only, you know, pulling forth and revealing things about yourself, or, you know, with that value you're trying to add to the world, but it's very new territory. So to be able to have someone who can walk you through that process, who can help and support, and to be able to help get those books published is an amazing tool to be able to have. So thank you so much for sharing that. And you were featured in the Wall Street Journal for your portrayal of you. Like, you were literally a historian to heart for your portrayal in a one-woman show of Mary McLeod Bethune. So I want you to share with the audience, so who is this historical figure, and why has it been so important for you to really step into her life and share her story?
Well, this came about because someone asked me to apply to do this for the Florida Humanities Council. And at the time, all I knew about her was, okay, FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, they have a wonderful Battle of the Band, you know, and that was it. And then when I started studying who Mary McLeod Bethune was, I almost begged for the part, because quite frankly, she is incredible. Like, she lived almost 5 lives. Speaking of 5, she advised 5 presidents, and the one that was most notable is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And there are things that we do today that trace right back to her, including the right for young people to learn how to do certain things, like fly airplanes. If you're a Tuskegee Airman, somebody had to negotiate for them to be able to learn that, as well as a lot of other skills. She picked the first women that were, other than nurses, to serve in the Army. So it was like, you know, there's just so much. And being on his Black cabinet, she was the first one to, she negotiated for Blacks to be in the Red Cross. It just goes on and on and on and on. And it's just an honor to be able to tell that story.
That is amazing. And see, there's so many hidden figures, you know, throughout history that have made significant contributions. And so it's beautiful to be able to continue to share those stories. And please tell everyone how they can get in contact with you to be able to get more information on legacy walls and those genealogy searches, and also the portrayals that you do of these historical figures, which I find absolutely fascinating. But how can people contact you?
I have a website that is www.sulatoo.com, www.sulatoo.com. And I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and you can reach me at Sulatoo, SULATOOLLC @gmail.com.
Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, Ersula, for joining us today. You know, when we share our stories, we have an opportunity to live, to learn, and to love a little bit more. And I'm your host, Havilah Malone, and I'm so grateful that you joined us today for this episode of Havilah and Friends, and I can't wait to see you next week.